It was a peaceful Saturday morning when my life changed in ways I never expected. I had just finished polishing my old Chevy, the car I had worked on for years with my late father. That car wasn't just metal, rubber, and paint, it was my most treasured memory. Every time I ran my hands across the hood, I could still hear Dad's voice telling me, "Son, one day, this car will carry stories that go beyond us both." I didn't know the biggest story was about to begin that very day. I lived in a quiet neighborhood run by a strict homeowners association, the kind where people cared more about the color of your lawn chairs than your actual well-being. And in this community lived Karen, yes, that kind of Karen. Short blonde hair, oversized sunglasses, and a constant need to remind everyone of the rules. But her son Tyler was worse. 17 years old, reckless, loud, and always speeding down our street in a beat-up sedan. Neighbors whispered complaints, but Karen defended him at every turn. "He's just a boy," she would say, waving her hand dismissively. "He's got energy." That morning, as I wiped down the Chevy's windshield, Tyler tearing past my driveway, music blasting, my stomach tightened. Something told me trouble was coming by afternoon. It did. I was sitting on the porch, coffee in hand, when I heard the screech. Tires squealing, metal crunching, glass shattering. It was the kind of sound that makes your chest sink. I shot up and sprinted to the street. There it was, my Chevy, the front end crushed, the chrome bent like cheap plastic. Smoke hissed from the hood. And standing there, dazed but unhurt, was Tyler holding the steering wheel of his mother's SUV, which he had just plowed into my car. My voice cracked as I ran forward. "What did you do?" Tyler shrugged, chewing gum like nothing had happened. "Relax, old man. It's just a car." My chest burned. Just a car? That Chevy was my father's legacy, my only tie to him since he passed. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone. "I'm calling the police." That's when she came, Karen, storming across the street in her designer sandals, sunglasses perched on her head. She didn't even glance at the wreck. She went straight to her son, wrapping her arms around him like he was the victim. "What happened, sweetie?" She cooed. "He came out of nowhere," Tyler muttered, pointing at me. "His car was in the way." My jaw dropped. "In the way?" He drove into my driveway. Karen turned on me, her face twisted with that condescending smile only a Karen can master. "You don't need to yell. Boys will be boys. Accidents happen." I felt my blood pressure rise. Accidents happen. That car was my father's. "Oh, please," she cut me off. "It's just an old piece of junk. Insurance will sort it out." "Don't be dramatic." Her words sliced through me. My knees almost gave out. My father's memory, dismissed as junk. Neighbors started to gather, whispers rippling through the air. Some shook their heads in disbelief. Others looked away, uncomfortable. And me? I stood there, fists clenched, trying not to lose control. I dialed 911. My voice was calm, but my insides trembled. "Yes, I'd like to report an accident. A vehicle just crashed into mine." The driver fled responsibility. Karen gasped. "You're really calling the police? For a silly mistake? What kind of neighbor are you?" "The kind who values accountability," I shot back. Minutes later, red and blue lights flickered against the houses. 2 officers stepped out, 1 male, 1 female. They surveyed the scene, their eyes narrowing at the mangled Chevy. "Sir, is this your car?" the male officer asked. I nodded, my throat tight. "Yes, that boy crashed into it." "In my driveway?" The officer turned to Tyler. "Son, is that true?" Tyler shoved his hands in his pockets. "Kinda, but it's not a big deal. Cars can be fixed." Before I could speak, Karen jumped in, her voice dripping with fake charm. "Officer, this is all a misunderstanding. My son's a good kid. He just lost control for a second. No need to blow this out of proportion. Boys will be boys after all." The female officer's eyebrows shot up. "Ma'am, your son drove recklessly and caused property damage. That's not just boys being boys, that's dangerous." Karen's smile faltered. Finally, I felt a sliver of justice flicker. But deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. The damage to my car was repairable, maybe, but the damage to trust between neighbors. And to the memory of my father's legacy, that was another story. As the officers began taking statements, Karen whispered something under her breath, glaring at me. This isn't over. Her words chilled me more than the sight of my broken car. I didn't know then just how far she would go or how the truth, when it came out, would change everything. The flashing lights from the police cruisers turned my quiet street into a stage, every neighbor peeking from their porches and windows. My stomach churned as I stood beside the crushed Chevy. It felt like my father's memory had been run over right in front of me. The officers split us up. The male officer walked with Tyler to the sidewalk, while the female officer stood by me, notepad ready. "Sir," she said gently, "exactly what happened." I took a shaky breath. I was on my porch when I heard the screech. I pointed at Tyler, lost control of his SUV and rammed straight into my car. It was parked in my driveway. He wasn't hurt, but my car. That was my late father's. It's more than just a vehicle. The officer nodded, her eyes softening. I understand. Did you see how fast he was going? Too fast for this neighborhood. He's been doing it for months. Everyone knows. As if on cue, Mrs. Dawson, my elderly neighbor from 2 houses down, shuffled over with her cane. "Officer, I've seen that boy race up and down this street like it's a racetrack. Nearly ran over my cat last week. Something needs to be done." The female officer wrote it down. My heart steadied a little. Maybe, just maybe, this wouldn't be swept under the rug. Meanwhile, Karen was putting on a performance. She paced the sidewalk like a stage actress, waving her arms, her voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "This is ridiculous." "He's a child," she cried to the male officer. "Are we really wasting tax dollars because of a little dent?" "Ma'am," the officer said firmly, "that's not a dent. That's significant property damage. And your son admitted to driving recklessly." Karen scoffed, placing a dramatic hand on her chest. "Oh, come on. He's a teenager. Teenagers make mistakes." "When I was his age," the officer cut her off. "When you were his age, did you crash a car into your neighbor's property?" Her cheeks flushed red. "This is harassment. We're part of the HOA. We follow the rules. We keep this neighborhood safe." I nearly laughed at the hypocrisy, but my throat was too tight with grief. The officers reconvened in front of the wreck, whispering. I caught fragments of their conversation. Words like reckless driving, insurance, and possible citation. Each one was both a dagger and a small beam of hope. Finally, the female officer approached. "Sir, we'll be filing an official report. Your neighbor's son will be cited for reckless driving and property damage. You'll need to contact your insurance, but we'll make sure the report is thorough." Karen gasped, like she had been slapped. "Cited." She grabbed the officer's sleeve. No. He's a good student. This will ruin his future. You can't do this over an old car." That word again, old. I clenched my fists, my voice shaking but firm. That car was my father's. He taught me everything about life under that hood. It's not just a Kritz, the last piece of him I have left. The crowd had grown larger. Neighbors nodded, murmuring agreement. Some even glared at Karen. For once, the queen of the HOA didn't have her loyal subjects backing her up. The officers ignored her. Protests and handed me a slip with the case number. Then they turned to Tyler. "You'll need to appear in court," the male officer said. Tyler rolled his eyes. "Great, thanks, Dad," he muttered sarcastically, to no one in particular. That did it. Something inside me snapped. I stepped forward, my voice steady but sharp. "You think this is funny, kid? That car was built with blood, sweat, and love. When you treat people's things like they're worthless, you're not just breaking metal, you're breaking trust. One day you'll understand what it means to lose something you can't replace." For a second, just a second, I saw a flicker of guilt in his eyes, but it vanished quickly, replaced by his usual smug grin. Karen pulled him back. "Don't listen to this man. He's just bitter." The officers loaded their paperwork into the cruiser, and slowly the crowd dispersed. The excitement faded. leaving me alone with the wreck of my Chevy and the weight of my grief. Later that night, I sat in my garage, staring at the broken car under the dim yellow light. My hands traced the twisted chrome. My father's words echoed in my head, "Take care of her, son. She'll take care of you." I felt tears prick my eyes. "I'm sorry, Dad," I whispered. I let her down. Suddenly, a soft knock on the door broke the silence. It was Mrs. Dawson again, holding a plate of cookies. "I know this won't fix anything," she said gently, "but I wanted you to know you're not alone. We all saw what happened. That woman's been excusing his behavior for too long. Maybe now justice will finally catch up." I swallowed hard, my chest heavy but warmed by her kindness. "Thank you, Ruth. That means more than you know." She patted my arm. "Don't let her break you. Some of us still believe in doing what's right." But the calm didn't last. The very next morning, I found a letter taped to my front door. Bold black letters printed on HOA letterhead. "Dear resident, your vehicle, currently in a damaged and unsightly condition, violates community appearance standards. Please remove or repair immediately, or fines will be issued." At the bottom, signed in sharp ink, "Karen, HOA President." My hands trembled as I crumpled the paper. She wasn't just dismissing the accident, she was declaring war. And in that moment, I realized something important. My fight wasn't just about a car anymore. It was about respect, justice, standing up to someone who thought the rules never applied to her. I looked at the wreck, then at the letter, and I knew one thing for certain: this was far from over. The next few days were like living in a nightmare I couldn't wake from. My Chevy sat in the driveway under a tarp, bent and broken, waiting for the insurance adjuster. Every time I walked past it, a piece of me twisted inside. My father's voice echoed in my memory, "Protect her, son. She's more than just a machine." But now, instead of sympathy, I had a new enemy, the HOA, or more specifically, Karen. That letter taped to my door wasn't an idle warning. 2 days later, I received an official notice in the mail. $500 fine for violation of HOA aesthetics. The reason? Unsightly damaged vehicle visible from the street. I nearly ripped the paper in half. My car had been destroyed by her son, and now she was fining me for it. I stormed across the street to her house, letter in hand. She opened the door with that smug smile that made my stomach churn. "Can I help you?" she asked sweetly, though her eyes glittered with malice. "You know exactly why I'm here," I said, waving the letter. "Your son wrecked my car, and now you're fining me for it. This is harassment." Her smile widened. "It's not harassment. It's the rules. Damaged vehicles must be repaired or removed. We can't have the neighborhood looking like a junkyard. My voice cracked with anger. "That car was my father's. It's not junk. It's my family's history." She leaned against the doorframe, folding her arms. "Then maybe you should have kept it in a garage instead of flaunting it in the driveway." Don't blame me for your poor choices. The urge to yell boiled inside me, but I forced myself to breathe. Losing control would only feed her smugness. "This isn't over." "Karen," I said through clenched teeth. "Oh, I know," she replied, her grin sharp as glass. "Because I won't let it be." Word spread quickly. Some neighbors came to me in quiet support, whispering that Karen was out of line. But others avoided me, nervous about getting on her bad side. After all, she was HOA President, and in this community. That title carried weight one evening. I found flyers slipped into mailboxes, an HOA reminder, signed by Karen herself. "Let us maintain the beauty of our community. Do not allow unsightly, damaged property to bring down home values. We must all do our part." I knew it was aimed directly at me. The humiliation stung. But what cut deeper was the memory of that night watching Tyler smirk as if he'd done nothing wrong. Hearing Karen dismiss my father's legacy as junk. That injustice burned in my chest like a fire. I couldn't put out. When the insurance adjuster finally arrived, my heart sank even lower. He walked around the Chevy with a clipboard, shaking his head. "Damage is extensive," he said. "Frames bent. Repairs could cost more than the car's worth. I clenched my fists. It's not about the money. This car. It's priceless to me. He sighed, sympathetic but firm. I understand, sir. But from an insurance perspective, it'll likely be considered totaled. Totaled. That word felt like a death sentence. After he left, I sat in the garage staring at the Chevy for hours, lost in memories. Dad teaching me to change the oil. Dad laughing as we sanded the rust spots. Dad's proud smile when I finally drove it for the first time. Tears blurred my vision. I won't let them erase you, Dad. I promise. That promise was tested sooner than I thought. A week later, the HOA held its monthly meeting in the community clubhouse. Usually these gatherings were boring affairs about lawn heights and fence paint, but this time, the room buzzed with tension. Karen stood at the front, her voice loud and commanding. Neighbors, we must address the issue threatening our property values. A damaged, unsightly vehicle remains in full view, despite repeated notices. This is unacceptable. Murmurs filled the room. Some nodded, others shifted uncomfortably. I rose from my seat, my heart pounding. That vehicle, I said, my voice carrying, was destroyed by her son? And now she wants to punish me for being the victim. Gasps echoed. Karen's face tightened, but she forced a smile. Oh, don't be dramatic. My son simply made a mistake. We can't allow one person's personal sob story to drag down the entire community. Rage surged through me. A mistake? He could have killed someone. What if it had been a child on the sidewalk instead of my car? The room fell silent. For the first time, Karen's confidence faltered. Mrs. Dawson, bless her, rose from her seat, cane tapping the floor. I've lived here for 30 years, she said firmly. And I've watched that boy speed down this street day after day. It was only a matter of time before something terrible happened. If anyone's to blame, it's his mother for excusing him. A ripple of agreement spread through the crowd. Karen's cheeks turned crimson. The male officer from the accident appeared then, stepping into the back of the room. He held up a folder. Sorry to interrupt, he said. But I thought the community should know. Tyler's incident wasn't isolated. We've had multiple complaints of reckless driving linked to him. This accident was the last straw. He'll be facing charges in juvenile court. The room erupted. Neighbors whispered, some gasped, some even clapped. Karen's face went pale. She stammered, This is an invasion of privacy. But the officer shook his head. It's public record, ma'am. And this community deserves to know the truth. For the first time, Karen didn't have a comeback. She stood frozen, her mask of superiority cracking. I looked around the room and felt a shift. The power she held, the fear she ruled with it, was slipping. People weren't just seeing me as the man with the broken car anymore. They were seeing her for what she really was, a bully who thought rules applied to everyone but her family. That night, as I walked home, neighbors stopped me with words of encouragement. Stay strong. She's gone too far this time. We're with you, for the first time since the crash. I didn't feel alone, but as I reached my porch, I noticed something chilling. A note tucked under my doormat, written in neat, sharp handwriting. You think you've won? This is far from over. Signed simply, K. I held the note in trembling hands. Anger and fear twisting inside me, Karen wasn't finished. She had lost ground tonight, but she wasn't the type to back down, and I knew before this ended. Things were going to get worse. The note from Karen burned in my pocket like a live coal. You think you've won? This is far from over. Those words played over and over in my head. For days I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the floorboards at night made me tense. Every sound outside had me glancing at the window, wondering if Karen had escalated. She wasn't just a neighbor anymore. She was an enemy on a warpath. Still, I refused to move the Chevy. Tarped and broken, it sat in my driveway like a wounded soldier. It wasn't just a current, was a reminder that I wasn't going to bow down to her bullying. Then came the next blow. One morning, I walked out to find bright orange stickers slapped across the tarp. Violation, vehicle must be removed. And beneath that, a new letter from the HOA signed, of course, by Karen announcing that if I didn't comply within 7 days, they would tow it at my expense. My blood boiled. I stormed back inside, gripping the paper so tightly it nearly ripped. This wasn't about a car anymore. This was about principle, about standing up to someone who thought she was untouchable. I called the officer who had handled the case, explaining the situation. He sighed. "Sir, HOA disputes are civil matters. But given that the vehicle is evidence in the ongoing case against her son, no one has the authority to tow or remove it until the court is done." Relief washed over me. "So if they try, they'd be interfering with an active police investigation," he said firmly, "which would be a serious problem for them." That was the lifeline I needed. The HOA meeting that week was explosive. I walked in carrying the notice and slapped it on the table in front of everyone. "This," I said loudly, "is harassment. This car is evidence in a police case. And yet, your president wants to tow it away, as if my pain is just an inconvenience." Karen rose slowly, her voice syrupy sweet. "Neighbors, don't be fooled. He's exaggerating. I'm only protecting our property values." But before she could continue, the officer from the accident, who had been invited by a sympathetic board member, stepped forward. "That vehicle is officially under investigation," he said flatly. "Any attempt to tow or tamper with it would be obstruction of justice. Do I make myself clear?" The room went silent. Karen's mouth opened and closed like a fish, but no words came out. For the first time, she looked cornered. Still, the real turning point came weeks later, at Tyler's court hearing. I sat in the back of the juvenile courtroom, my hands folded tightly. The judge, a stern woman with silver hair, listened as the officers laid out the evidence. Reckless driving, multiple complaints from neighbors, and finally, the crash into my Chevy. Tyler sat slouched in his chair, chewing gum, acting like he was above it all. But when the judge turned her sharp eyes on him, he shifted uncomfortably. "Young man," she said firmly, "do you understand the seriousness of your actions? You could have killed someone. This isn't boys being boys. This is negligence." For once, Tyler didn't smirk. He stared at the floor Karen sitting beside him, shot to her feet. "Your Honor, please. He's a good boy. He just made a mistake. Surely this doesn't need to go on his record." The judge cut her off. "Sit down, ma'am. Your constant enabling is part of the problem." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Karen's face turned crimson as she sank back into her seat. The judge continued. "Tyler, you will complete 200 hours of community service, attend a defensive driving course, and pay restitution for the damages." She glanced at me. "And to the victim, I want you to know, justice is being served." My throat tightened. It wasn't about money. It was about acknowledgement that what had been done to me mattered. After the hearing, something unexpected happened. As I walked to the parking lot, I heard footsteps behind me. It was Tyler. He looked nervous, his usual bravado gone. "Hey," he muttered, not meeting my eyes. "Look, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that car meant so much. I was just being stupid." I studied him for a long moment. Part of me wanted to lash out, to tell him his apology meant nothing compared to what I lost. But another part of me apart, my father-raised new anger wasn't the answer. "Tyler," I said quietly, "wasn't just a car. It was my dad's legacy. You need to understand something when you hurt people. Sometimes the damage goes deeper than what you can see." He nodded slowly. "I get it now." For the first time, I believed him. Back home weeks later, Chevy was finally hauled away not by the HOA, but by a restoration specialist I had hired with the restitution money. It wouldn't be easy, but I was determined to bring her back to life. As the truck pulled away, I whispered, "We'll get you fixed, Dad, I promise." And in that moment, a weight lifted from my chest. The final blow to Karen came quietly. After the hearing, the HOA board, fed up with her bullying and embarrassed by her behavior, voted her out as president. A neighbor with integrity took her place, and for the first time in years, the community felt lighter, freer. Karen, stripped of her power, avoided me whenever we crossed paths. The woman who once ruled the neighborhood with fear now walked with her head low. Looking back, I realized something important. Yes, I had lost precious time, peace, and nearly my father's legacy. But I had also gained something: courage. Courage to stand up, not just for myself, but for what's right. Courage to remind people that justice matters, even in the smallest neighborhoods. To my neighbors, I wasn't just the man with the broken car anymore. I was proof that bullies, no matter how loud or powerful, can be defeated when truth and persistence against them. And to Tyler, maybe, just maybe, you learn that being held accountable doesn't ruin you, it shapes you into someone better. Sometimes, life throws you into battles you never wanted, but those battles reveal who you are and who you refuse to become. And as I stood in my driveway, watching the sunset reflect off the empty spot where the Chevy once sat, I felt my father's presence. His voice, soft but steady, seemed to whisper in the breeze, "You did good, son." You stood tall. I closed my eyes, smiled through the tears, and whispered back, "Thanks, Dad."